Hi, everybody. Welcome to Talking Automotive with Mark and John. My name is John Sinclair and my co-host, Mark Palavestra.
Today, we've got David Hawkins, the CRO from Logistix. And David gives us the good oil on mining your data and getting granular with it, determine and achieve a very strong return on investment with your loyalty campaigns.
Yeah, David shows us how to maximize your dealership performance by really understanding the data and what you can do with that data. So really a great listen. So let's jump into it.
With 30 years' experience in auto logistics and state-of-the-art locations in 5 major Australian cities, PreCar Fleet Services is an independent division of PreCar Services, offering specialty fleet fit-outs for commercial applications ranging from simple tray and tow bar fitments to fully bespoke service body and accessory installation. With quality-assured safety, compliance and standardisation of vehicle builds, PreCar Fleet Services are a premier all-in-one solutions provider for commercial vehicle fleet operators, leasing companies, and original equipment manufacturers. For further information on how PreCar Fleet Services can assist in solving your commercial vehicle fit-out needs, please visit precar.com.au and click on the link to Fleet Services.
So Dave, thanks very much for coming on the show. It's really great to have an opportunity to speak to someone with your experience and length of tenure in the automotive industry. So maybe just to kick things off, can you maybe just tell us a little bit about Loyalty Logistix and how it came about and why you started it?
Sure. Thanks, guys. Well, the journey started 15 years ago. I've been in the automotive industry really since I left university, and I'd worked for various suppliers, DMS providers, used car aggregation sites, all sorts of technologically based businesses. But it's myself and my partner who started the business. We had one overriding aim, and that was we observed that each of the OEMs that we worked for, each of the dealer groups and each of the dealers spent almost all of their marketing and advertising spend on attracting new customers. So it was either brand building or attracting new customers to buy new cars. And they spent very little money or hardly any of their attention on retaining the customers they'd already sold to, who knew them, liked them, trusted them, used them for after sales, but they spent very little time and effort in trying to retain them. And we thought there was a gap. So we started Loyalty Logistix with one sole aim: to help dealers, groups and OEMs retain more customers for longer. And then through the last 15 years, we've developed a number of products, services and approaches and developed the business around that single aim.
So David, so where is it that you currently operate?
We've been very lucky in this journey, and we have customers in the United States, all across Europe, the Middle East, all across the Middle East and in Asia. We have an office in Japan where we work with a number of car companies. And one thing I would say, Mark, is that even when we're working with the same brand in different countries, their approach to retention and renewals and measuring the business is often different. We work within groups and families of brands where we'll find one brand, even though it's the same family, will measure their success in customer retention differently to their sister or their brother.
So Dave, from your experience, do you see, is the automotive industry totally unique?
I think our industry has some unique facets. And one of those things is that we have, beyond all other retail businesses really, a unique architecture. And what I mean by that is the following. If you are a Toyota dealer, your biggest competitor is not the Hyundai dealer next door. It's not the Ford dealer down the road. It's probably the next Toyota dealer. And we have OEMs that engage in a franchise business model that means all of their resellers or all of their retail outlets are owned by different companies. They're independent businesses, and those independent businesses don't share data. So what we have is a fragmented picture of the experience our customers have. And I would argue that many of the OEMs, that we meet with and talk to have very little statistical evidence of what it's like to own their vehicles. And because the dealers don't share data, what we get is a very poor, fragmented, variable customer experience. And one of the things that's, was news to us when we started was that customers have more than one relationship with more than one dealer. So they have more than one record. They're not duplicates. It's not a duplicate because it's an independent business. And therefore, if I buy a car from dealer A, they have my profile. But unfortunately, I don't get it serviced at dealer A. I get it serviced at dealer B. Dealer B has no evidence, no understanding of how I bought the car, why I bought it, what my goals were. They're just over the moon that they've gained a new after-sales customer. Dealer A, where I bought the vehicle, he's crazy. He's mad. What's happened to me? What did we do wrong? He's sending me CSI surveys to try and blame the salesman for giving me a bad experience. But it's not true. It's simply, I found a more convenient place. But what that means is that I'm getting mixed messages. I'm getting emails and text messages to say, where are you? Come back to my dealership. Please have 20% off. When I've just had my car serviced and had a great service within the network. So one of the measures, one of the key performance indicators that we reveal is not just loyalty to a dealership, but loyalty within a network and a brand. And we find with many of our customers, 25%, 30% of the records that we see have more than one relationship. And it's that architecture that presents one of the biggest problems. The second unique thing is that unlike most modern 21st century retail operations, we still have these islands of data. So one of the core deliverables that we see as important is that every relationship a customer has with a dealer is time-based. The finance agreement's time-based, the service plan is time-based, the warranty is time-based, the roadside assistance, the insurance, all of the things have a start and end date. And so what we need to be able to do is bring together the disparate databases this information is recorded and allow us to get a really true picture of what it's like to own a vehicle. And that, I think, is where it's unique. And what we're seeing is, and we could argue and we could talk about whether the franchising proposition is still valid and will we go to an agency model. But at the moment, revealing that core single expression of what it's like to own a Toyota is one of the key facets, I think, going forward. So one of the challenges we've got, John, in terms of the uniqueness of the automotive industry is our approach. And that's the approach of the automotive professional. And what I mean by that is the following. We could display, and I'll show you some slides that show how retention over time weakens. I think it's a well-worn fact in our industry that customers in the first 2 or 3 years are much more loyal than in years 4 and 5. And we can mitigate that with certain activities. However, if we know that's a fact, and I think we all do, why is our industry selling 5-year finance? Why are we putting customers into finance that inevitably leads them to window shop in years 4 and 5? Why are we allowing them to do that? We know that loyalty goes down. We know we have to fight more for those customers from the professional independent market. Yet we as an industry are forcing our customers into 5-year finance. Yet, if we took a different approach and said, no, what we need to do is look at the way we sell cars, then that will help us downstream with our loyalty. And so many of the problems I see is the fact that we don't understand what we're doing in terms of the sale and repurchase. And one of the phrases we use all the time is, I'd love to make the point of sale the point of resale. And what I mean by that is set the expectation of the customer at the point of sale that the best thing you can do is be in 3-year finance And actually, what we're going to do is value your car, which we do all the time, every night. We value cars that we know customers have got, looking for the point of parity or the point of excess in terms of equity, and therefore get to the customer in year 2.5, year 3, before they have the opportunity to be disloyal and at the point of defection. And across the globe, it's the same points of defection. The first point of defection all the time across all our customers in all of their franchises is either tyres, it's batteries, and it's wipers, and often brakes. But batteries, wipers, and tyres are the point where they're going to experience this new independent sector where you don't need an appointment, by the way, and you can just rock up and get your car fixed or the wipers changed in 15 minutes. So they suddenly have a reasonably good experience at a reasonably good price. Why are we allowing that? Well, I'd take that all the way back to the way we sell cars.
A question for me on that. How do you see the warranty period? Because what we're seeing in Australia here, most brands are doing 7-year warranty now, and some have just started to do 10-year warranty. What do you think is the impact of that? Do you think they're signing up more customers to buy the brand?
I think it's a marketing ploy. I think if we looked at the statistics about what warranty jobs are being done on 10-year-old cars, I think we'd all be fairly shocked at the minimal amount of warranty jobs that are done. Certainly, often with our customers, that's what bears the evidence suggests. Certainly, from a marketing perspective, the confidence of reinforcing the customer they've made the right decision. These warranties are a huge and popular tool. It's also a way of getting towards that second owner. So we believe very strongly that we should engage with the independent market. Why wouldn't any car company and any dealer in the world want to know that a 7-year-old Toyota has been serviced at a car service city or an independent garage? Why wouldn't we want to know that? We could sell them parts, and increasing the trade B2B of the dealer's business is key to success. But we need to understand that I'd much rather know where the car is than not at all. But again, these warranties, it's about getting to that second and third owner, and there's a number of strategies for that forward.
Now, David, when you're talking about the challenges that you see, so you're talking about there's this island of data and the fragmentation across brands, networks, and because there's different owners and different brands, etc. What do you see as being the biggest challenge for the dealership itself?
Again, it's a great question. One of the key challenges is that the dealers are busy. So often that they're doing a great job in trying to serve their customers, that the things that we talk about are put on the back burner. And often the things they measure are the things they measured in 1985. Productivity, efficiency, customer satisfaction. And in the modern 21st century, omni-channel, all these great phrases we use about multiple channels to talk to the customer. The challenge is creating that retail experience that I enjoy with, dare I say, Amazon, dare I say it with Spotify, dare I say it with all of the things that I subscribe to. And the automotive industry is not living up to those expectations. And I don't understand why. Because everything we do, I can't think of anything other than if I have an accident, which is unpredictable. But everything else to do with my relationship with the dealer, my relationship with my vehicle, and the dealer's relationship with the vehicle is predictable. It's totally predictable. We sell a car, we service a car, we change the parts that need changing for safety reasons at predictable and identifiable timelines. Yet, we as an industry still don't get those easily predictable events correct. And I'll give you a real life example. We deal with a dealer group that has sites all over the country, and we did some analysis of what actually, when were brake inspections and brakes changed for a particular set of vehicles. Not when it was recommended, not what the service schedule said, but actually when did these transactions happen. And we found that dealers in the north of the country, on average, changed the brakes on this particular model 6 months before dealers in the south. Now, we were like, this is crazy. What does this mean? And it became totally obvious to us, but we'd never revealed it before. And it was simply that in the north it was mountainous, and in the south it was flat. Yet the OEM and the dealer group were sending out exactly the same reminders at exactly the same time to all the country, or to all the customers across the country, and they just weren't valid. And so the dealers were looking silly, having sent a reminder to somebody that had already had those brakes changed. And I want to give one other real example as well. When we do our granular detail of data extract of every transaction from every dealer for the last 7 years, and take those extracts every night, right down to part number and labour operation code level, what we find is that most dealers are looking for the next service due date. And their DMS records this magical date, which is when the service is due next. However, when we look at the transactions, we often find that we can identify an oil filter, an air filter, 5 litres of oil, and 2.5 hours of labour, or whatever the service schedule says. But it's not categorised as a service. It's been lost in other things. It's been called a maintenance job, or it's been called a repair because it came in at the same time for a repair. Now, when we see an oil filter, an air filter, oil, and about the right labour content, we identify that as a service, regardless of what it's identified in the DMS. That's a service, and therefore generate the next prediction from that. So from a dealer's perspective, the biggest challenges are data quality, recording things correctly, and customer expectations in terms of the omni-channel view of life. And finally, you can tell I could go on this point, is managing the customer's permissions and preferences. Active consent is very different than the historic data that we get of customers being every box of every preference is ticked, and managing those preferences, I think, will be a challenge going forward for all car companies and dealers.
So, David, what do you think are the main pain points that inhibit dealers from maximising the results, besides what you've mentioned now in terms of quality of data?
Yeah, I mean, other than data quality, and I referred to time, a lot of the time the service manager is not an expert in marketing. That they haven't got those skills. They've got a different set of skills in managing and making their business profitable. I think also is having access to the data. And what I mean by that is, if I have to go and do something every Wednesday to generate X, Y, or Z, and then I have to go on a Thursday to generate another sample of customers we need to talk to, it becomes a difficult job. And I just won't do it consistently. I'll do it when the workshop is not full. So having a process and having an automated, target-led, predictive marketing system, I think, is the key. It's doing the job for you every day and every night. And secondly, it's focusing on the real people we need to get to. And what I mean by that is this. If we make a prediction that 100 people need to come into my dealership for a repurchase or a service or a process that I'll call the first point of defection, we call it the defector detector, which I'll talk about in a minute. We have to run it consistently. And secondly, it has to run every day and has to target these people. However, the real people we need to focus on are not the 100. It's just simply not true, because once I've made that communication, over the following period, over the following week or the following 2 weeks, I will hopefully see some bookings. So that 100 people, that big number, will reduce. And over a period of time, we're left with 30 people who haven't responded, or their email bounced, or the phone number didn't go through. Those are the people we need to focus on, not the big number. And once you break it down into those defector detectors, then it's a much more manageable process for the dealer with the resources that they've got. The reason that dealers don't maximize their results, in my opinion, is consistency. It's doing it every day, every night, consistently. One of the things I mentioned earlier was about time. And we find that sales managers and after sales managers don't have the time to get into this detail, but also have the time to make the marketing programs because they're just too busy. And one of the phrases we use is that in our industry, long term is lunchtime. I've talked a lot about loyalty, and one of our key offerings is the ability for a dealer group or an OEM to create a loyalty program. Now, making those offers, benefits and rewards, making them time-based, making them multi-redeemable. Can you redeem it more than once? Can you offer it to a friend? All of these things are quite complex, and they're different from an OEM level loyalty program that we run compared to a dealer loyalty program. And so building those customer portals, building the mobile apps and getting engagement from members is one of our key offerings.
What do you think is the most cost-effective marketing for a dealer?
Well, I mean, with my advanced years, John, I remember when we used to send out thousands of postcards every day.
Yeah, I remember that too.
And we've moved now to paying for call centres, which is great. But going back to my analogy of the defector detector, I'm all for having call centres to follow up those people that have not responded to digital marketing. But what I would argue is that the most cost-effective way is how does the customer want to receive that information? With one of our customers, we were amazed at the number of people who have signed up for our WhatsApp communication tool, which means that we get the permission of the customer, it's active permission, and we're talking directly to an individual. So without doubt, it's got to be digital and all aspects of digital. Again, in some countries, Scandinavia, for example, email communication is the way forward. In the Middle East, we don't do as much email. It's very much based on SMS, WhatsApp or Line or whatever the most popular provider is in terms of social media. But again, what I'd argue as well is that we're asking our service managers, our after-sales directors, to learn new skills in terms of getting and reaching those customers. And we need to help them and train them and coach them in ways and means of the modern marketing strategy.
Now, Dave, you've spoken about a whole range of topics and it covers quite a depth of points. But what are the things that you recommend dealers should focus on to maximize and drive achievement or performance?
What I would say is that it all comes from the data. If you think about all modern businesses, they trust the data. So your supermarkets will look at what we're buying, when we're buying it, how we're buying it, and create a strategy from that. Of course, the biggest one is Walmart or even Amazon. And if you've never heard the old story of the nappy principle, I can tell you that story very quickly. 1980s, Walmart executive looked at the data for the sale of nappies, diapers, but bought by men. And it became very clear in the data that the most popular time to buy nappies by men was between 5:30 and 7:30 on Friday evening. And it was again surmised that it was because the husband was called by their wife on the way home from work. Can you pick up some diapers? Can you pick up some nappies? So this genius executive did one thing. He put the beer by the nappies, and therefore sales of beer shot through the roof for those particular 2 hours. But what we do in our industry is we don't trust the data. We don't extract all of these data items from the DMS, put it into a relational database, and update that with transactional and behavioral data overnight, every night, to build a pattern of what actually are my Hyundai i10 drivers engaging with me. When do they buy? What do they buy? And through what channels? So to maximize the return, the biggest impact has got to be getting to that data. What you then do with it is your strategy. Now, if we reveal to a dealer the relationship between invoice value and retention for that particular dealer, then they can create a strategy to mitigate it. But at the moment, what we're doing, I think, in our industry is using very well-worn, very traditional KPIs and working towards those KPIs, which is not a bad thing. But what we believe very strongly is that we're not maximizing the opportunity because we don't analyze the data. I'll give you one more example. CSI. We talk about CSI, and CSI is a great measure of my experience at that dealership. It's not necessarily a measure of loyalty, by the way. There are other indications of loyalty. CSI is a measure of how I was treated the last time I was in your dealership. But what we do is we say, we've got to treat the customer really well. Oh my God, this is really important. Absolutely agree. But if we were to do one thing, why don't we measure open repair orders? Because the one thing that affects loyalty and affects CSI and affects customers' attitude is having their car off the road. So one of the measures that we promote is having an alert on open repair orders. And when the open repair order gets over a certain number of days, there's an alert and an action must be taken. That will mitigate the problem. But going back to your original question, John, get the data, understand what your dealership is doing. And it's very different between a rural dealership, a multi-franchise rural dealership, to a single franchise metro dealership. There are different problems. There are different challenges.
David, don't you think the challenge has been that in the past you couldn't get down to that granular level, and now that you can, I think many people in the industry haven't realized what sort of information you can get and what you can actually do with it, and the predictions and the forecasting that can come out of that. So to me, that's really fascinating and very exciting, because that can open a whole new ballpark of how effective you can be and what you can achieve from that.
Well, it is very interesting. It's making it visible. It's making it visible in a way that can be consumed by the people in our industry. I'll give you a real example. My local Jaguar Land Rover dealer here where I live sells around 300, 350 new cars per year. Okay. So his entire world for first services next year is 350. Now, he might get some walk-ins and he might get some defectors from different Jaguar Land Rover dealerships. But let's just say he's got 350 people, that's it. And he's got another 350 people. I know their names and we know where they live and we know what cars they drive. Yet we're still losing those people at an alarming rate that by year 4, some of dealerships, I'm not saying this particular one, but they could be down at 60% retention, 50% retention by year 4. Well, that's crazy. How can we grow our business with repeatable, recurring revenue if we're losing 50% over 4 years? Now, when you present that to a service manager and say, Mark, John, here are the 350 people. 300 of them have come back because they're on service plans. Fabulous, great stuff. But these 50, we don't know where they are. It's not beyond our capabilities to present those numbers, present those people, not just statistics, drill down and find out their names and their addresses and their phone numbers and find out where they are. And they may have moved house and they may have sold the car, of course. But presenting the world of this dealer and saying, this year, guys, you've got 300 first year, 300 second year, 300 third year, 200 fourth year, 150, we can do the numbers and present them in a way where we can really focus on getting into that granular detail and at the same time, how about this? What about if we were able to observe and visualize that of all the Land Rover Discovery customers that I have, here are the people that have had servicing. Here are the people that have had servicing and brakes. Here are the people that have had servicing, brakes, and extra cover warranty, or wipers, or whatever else we sell, so that we can visualize a matrix that says, these are the things we need to sell to these customers. not the big picture of, oh, I need to get more people back in. No. Some people are coming back and are very loyal. But by the same token, going back to my analogy of 5-year finance, when we do get a customer back into our service department, why is it that we're not telling sales? Why is it we're not doing one simple thing, which is, Mark, thank you for having your car serviced with me yesterday here at Hawkins Land Rover. Just to let you know, your online account has been credited with £462.32, which is what you spent with me yesterday. That's in your loyalty account, and it will remain there for the next 90 days. And it can be used against the purchase of any new or used Land Rover at my dealership. Yesterday's service was free. Use the money against the purchase of a new car. Now, any dealer in the world, if I walked into and said, could I have 500 quid off the list price, would wrestle me to the floor to get the deal. So what we're not doing is using the data.
That's actually a very powerful offer, David, and a very clever one, because that really, when you think about it, and you put it into just normal operation speak, from a sales perspective, you're right. You would give that money away all day, every day to do a deal. And yet, right now, you've got an advocate that you could say, who will say immediately, I'm engaging with you. I trust you because I've spent money with you, and you're going to return that to me in kind automatically as a discount off a new car.
Yeah.
So it puts me in a position from a sales perspective, I'm at an immediate advantage to any other dealer.
Exactly.
Because no other dealer has that situation. So that really builds that obligation, which is what we love in sales, is building that obligation from the customer to us for that loyalty and for commitment. And John, it actually ties in with the training that we just did and the whole principle of reciprocity.
Yeah.
You reciprocate. If you've done business with me, I'll reciprocate by giving you that powerful offer, which you will then reciprocate back to me by purchasing a vehicle, which I'm then going to service, and then away it goes. That is a brilliant circular arrangement and so clever.
But also, Mark, I think the clever thing about that is most of those customers, you know that you'll have a certain percentage of those customers defecting after that service. You'll never see them again, because that's year 3, 4, and 5. So you're losing 50% of your customers at that time. So by doing that, you get them in the back and you're getting a good used car to trade on. You're selling another car, so you're going to hold that customer for another 3, 4 years. You're selling service and parts with it. So it's a win all round for every department. So it's a very clever strategy.
Can I just say, we've done, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but 40-odd podcasts, probably closer to 50. I reckon that's one of the most powerful gems I've ever heard. That is one of the most and I've been in this industry a couple of years, but I can tell by my hair. That is brilliant. That is, David, that is absolutely brilliant. It is so simple, but it is just so brilliant. My God.
The other thing to add to that is in our industry, we do the following. Mark, would you like to buy a car today? No. Okay. We make a single offer and it's redeemable there and then. We run a lot of loyalty programs for our dealers, which have an account. And so when we make you an offer, Mark, we say, Mark, would you like to buy a car today? Oh, no, I'm not interested. No problem, Mark. I've left the offer in your account so you can review it later. Same with after sales. Would you like a set of tyres today? No, don't need them. 2 months down the road, oh, I need a tyre. So when we make offers, we say to our members that it's available to you. It can be timed. It doesn't have to be forever. But one of the things about loyalty is there is a massive difference in terms of psychology between an offer, a benefit, and a reward. An offer is where anybody can get this approach. 10% off servicing, 500 quid off your deposit for your next vehicle. Anyone has got it. I've seen it in the national press. I don't need to be special to get that offer. Okay, I might like the offer, by the way. I'm not saying that they're bad, but what I am saying is that anyone can get it. A benefit comes from me becoming a member of this club, or me giving you access to my data, or giving you my email address, or giving you my phone number, or in our world, becoming a member of Sinclair loyalty program, or the Advantage Club, or my driving club, whatever it might be. And that benefit is because I've given you something. I've allowed you to access me. So often what you find, you sign up for a newsletter and you get a benefit. Again, a little bit of reciprocity there because I'm allowing you to get this data. But the most powerful is a reward because you haven't given me anything. I've earned it. You're not offering me anything. I've earned this reward. And therefore, if I were to spend or have 3 services, and at the end of those 3 services, you reward me with a special labour rate for my 4th service or a free valet or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. This is a reward based on my behaviour, based on my spend, based on my interaction, based on my loyalty. Whatever the measure is, we can talk about. But I've earned that reward. And the psychology here is, well, if I've earned it, I'm going to spend it. I'm going to use it because I've earned it. I am the most protective person over my air miles than anyone in the world. I go with the same 2 airlines. I make it inconvenient for me to travel, but I stay on these 2 airlines because, by God, I'm going to use those miles at the end of the year. Now, with the psychology of a reward, we are doing 2 things. It could be seen as an incentive, agreed. However, it's also a barrier to exit, which again is a different thing. We're creating the fear of loss. If I don't buy the next car from you, I'm not going to get my reward. If I don't use you to have my tyres, I'm not going to get my reward. And so we've changed the psychology. But again, of all the customers that we have and we work with, you can't do this as a one-off. It has to be a strategy and it has to be available for use over time, which is why an online portal, a loyalty club, is so important. And what I mean by that is the following. The dealer and the OEM has fantastic information about you and your vehicle. The only people they don't share it with is you. So I never read the manual. I don't know what the towing torque of my car is. I don't know how to fill the wiper, the windscreen bottle. All of that information we should have specifically for you, for your car in your portal. And then what we're doing is communicating to a sample of one, which is a personalized approach for you as a customer for your vehicle, and the rewards are based on your behavior. And so a lot of the work we do in this data management field is the granular, detailed analysis of your service history. Now, that's great that the dealership knows it, but why don't I display it to you? And why don't I display it in a way that looks like your Facebook timeline so you can understand it? And come to think of it, why don't I display it not just with what you've done, but what you should have done? Going back to my point about most of the operations we do are predictable. Why don't I tell you from day one at the point of sale, Mark, thanks for buying the car from me today. I hope you have a great relationship with the car. That's fantastic. I hope you really enjoy it. These are the things we expect for your safety, for your family's safety, and to keep the value of your car at its peak condition. These are the things we expect to happen over the next 3 years. But don't worry, log into your online account and you'll see all of this information for you. Now, that, I think, is the digital service that we want. And that, to me, will inspire loyalty rather than the only time you communicate with me is when you want me to buy something.
But David, that then brings up, so you can then see the lifetime value of that customer and everything that customer has done with you at your fingertips.
And that also brings up other things like families. So being able to recognize that we've got 3 accounts or 3 customers that live at the same address. Now, it could be a block of flats, of course, but if they've got the same family, and therefore measure the real lifetime value of that customer. Now, particularly when we're talking about warranty or CSI, where if we knew the lifetime value of the customer, that may affect the way we treat a particular customer or not. We've had horror stories of customers who were arguing about a £3 washer, and yet that customer had spent $100,000 over the last 12 months. And yet we were charging them $3 for a washer or something, and they weren't happy. So having that at your fingertips and understanding what it's actually like to own a vehicle. When my children were young, I was like most fathers, I was a taxi driver. I took them here and took them there. What I didn't realise is as an adult, as they are adults now, I'm a fleet operator. I basically buy the car, put the fuel in, insure it, maintain it. They just drive it. And so in that respect, I've got 3 vehicles registered to my name. And yet I don't feel like I get 3 good experiences. And I don't feel like that actually the dealership understands my son drives the car. He takes it in for the service. But if they knew that relationship, why wouldn't they be offering me alternative, safer cars, lower tax brackets for younger people? Yet all this information is available.
David, so jumping into the next question, can you tell us a little bit about the type of services you offer? Because there's such a multitude of stuff you've been talking about. How do you bring that into a service offering?
Yeah, well, when we started the business, it was all about loyalty. It was about loyalty cards, physical cards you swiped at a dealership. But it became very clear over time we needed to have an ROI and we need to be able to display that. And that's got us into data management. So the principle of our business is that we have the ability to extract granular, I believe, the most sophisticated extract in the industry, most detailed extract in the industry from multiple DMS systems, both historically and every night. And then the key to our proposition is being able to normalize that data so you can compare performance across dealerships, because DMS systems record data in different ways. So field A needs to be mapped to field B in 2 different DMSs. Once we've got that data and we can give and then enrich it with service plan, with warranty, with roadside assistance, with other data sources, we get the 360 view, the golden record, and we are able to tell an OEM they don't have 50,000 customers, they have 40,000, because there are multiple records for the same customer across multiple dealerships. From a dealer perspective, it's about recognizing family groups, recognizing lifetime spend. But once we've got that data, we're then able to do a couple of things, which are our service offerings, which is A, to map and analyze that data in granular detail. Service retention versus invoice value, defector detector, all of the things I've spoken about, by giving the dealer or the service manager or the sales manager accurate, statistically proven, and we'll only talk about data if it's statistically relevant, of what it's like to be a customer of that dealership. How many are transient? How many are loyal? How many are in danger? Now, once you've got that evidence, that's when you build your strategy. And there are a number of products that we've built to consume that data. So we've created predictive marketing, we've created online service booking, we've created open repair order tracking, but those are really applications that consume from the data. And by the same token, many of our customers don't use all our systems. They use Salesforce, or they use SAP, or they use any application. But to drive performance, you need the correct data in those systems. So we have a myriad of products, loyalty programs, customer portals, mobile apps, all of these things, but they all consume from this central relational database. And that's the value. The value is getting to that data and then building an effective strategy from there. And finally, I should say, one of the elements that's, I guess, is one of our most popular products is the fact that if we analyze your data and say, okay, we believe there are 120 people in your database that show characteristics that they should be buying a new car because of time, because of age, because of residual value, because of the servicing they've had. That's fine, but we haven't sold anything at this point. And it's great that someone will listen to a guy from Birmingham with a terrible accent, but I haven't proved anything at this point. But having identified those people, then having communicated with them, then having made them the offer, the benefit, or the reward, we are then extracting data every night looking for those people. And so what we can do is, over a period of time, track back every transaction from the people we identified as being in market. So we will know, of the 100 people we contacted, 37 engaged, 24 came in, 17 had a test drive, and 14 bought a car. But the value of that car was $15,000. So we know right back to the last cent, both in after sales and in sales, the ROI for every campaign. It's totally transparent. So we know all the time whether a campaign's worked or not. And Mr. Dealer, what we try and do is, if it works, repeat it. Keep going. Let's repeat and repeat and repeat. But if it doesn't work, why? Let's not fool ourselves that activity equals results. What we need to be able to do is measure that ROI right back to the very last cent. And an interesting observation that happens is that we obviously know what we're trying to sell. So, for example, let's say it was some sort of extended warranty campaign, just for example. We've identified the sample, we've communicated the offer, and we're now looking for transactions for those customers. And we get two sets. We get those who bought what we're trying to sell, and then we get a subset of people that came into the dealership and bought something else. Now, that might be that because the dealership was good at upselling, or it was good at cross-selling. But those two things are different, and so we can measure actually what they bought.
Why are you different, and what benefit do you provide compared to the other suppliers in the loyalty and customer experience market?
Yeah, great question. There's some really good companies out there that do similar things to us. What I would say is that our number one USP is the granularity of what we do. A lot of companies will scrape data from invoices. They will do a very high level extract of customer and vehicle information. We don't. We unfortunately, and we've made all the mistakes, and we've encountered all the problems over the last 10 years. We go to absolute granular detail of each field that is available in the DMS. The reason being is that gives us the opportunity to do some really fantastic analysis and really uncover what's going on in any particular dealership. And finally, if you like, what we bring is the ROI. We've got nowhere to hide. If we're recommending something to our customers, we've got to stand behind it, because guess what? Next month, I'm going to tell you the results.
So with those campaigns, for example, if you can just walk me through. So you've got the granular data, you've analysed all the elements down to all the permutations and combinations. You identify, well, here's something here in the north. We go through brakes. No surprises, it's mountainous. So we're going to go through it. So let's do a brake campaign ahead of what we do down south. Do you recommend the actions, or do you leave that to the dealers or the groups to do that?
So we'd work with the dealers with regard to the offer, because often we've got some good evidence and some good historical examples for them. But then what we do is, they don't often have the HTML skills to create a really nice outbound email. They don't have the skills to test it across multiple browsers. They don't have the skills to test an SMS across multiple devices, mobile phones. So either we will provide the sample and they can use their own systems, or we provide the sample, we import it into our predictive marketing model and our predictive marketing system. We create the HTML or the outbound communication, and we will then execute that for the dealer and continue to execute it. For example, we'll put a process in place that says the process for the brake campaign is email, then an SMS, then a link to your loyalty account, and then finally a WhatsApp. So those 4 processes will happen each time. If we see a booking, that customer no longer receives any additional information. So what we're doing is reducing the outbound campaign size by the number of people who've made the booking. And that reduces then the commitment. And finally, having executed all that, we're still extracting all this data overnight, every night. And therefore, in a month's time, we'll have the results based on the number of bookings and the number of transactions and invoices that we see, right down to part number level, right down to labour operation code.
So, David, if anyone's looking for your services, how can they reach out to you, or who do they speak to?
Yeah, so obviously that they can talk to you, John, and talk through you, or they can call me or email me direct at Loyalty Logistix, and I'd be happy to talk through each individual case. You know, as I said, I really want to be open and say a multi-franchise rural dealer is different to a single franchise metro dealer. They'll have different challenges. But what we've learned over the last 10 years through a journey of absolute pain to get this data model correct and have a common data model for all DMSs is that there are absolutely things that can be revealed to a dealer that they currently don't know. And all we're there to do is open that Pandora's box and hopefully reveal things that focuses them on the right activity. But John, they can call you or please directly to me.
So in summary, you're an industry expert. So you've got a background across OEMs in auto. You've worked for used car aggregators and DMS suppliers. So you know the data and the industry back to front. And you're a global operator because you operate in the US, Europe, the Middle East, and in the Asia Pacific. And you've even operated out of Japan as well, with working with OEMs and dealers. So extensive coverage globally. And it's interesting when you talked about the approach is never the same by brands or by dealer groups across locations or even across their own businesses. So each OEM will treat each market that they play in differently, and each dealer will then look at each other dealer differently. So there isn't that consistency. So what you're dealing with is a consistently inconsistent database. But this is where the strengths come into play. One thing that really shone through in everything that I heard you say in this and summarising is it's all about getting the data and then getting granular with the data. And that's something that comes through in many of our podcasts, is that the devil's in the data, but the dollars are in the data. So if you can manage and master the data, you can really do amazing things. And this is where you and your organisation help in extracting that data and then getting granular with it, but then you do actually a 360 with it. And the reason why is it so important to actually do this? It's because dealerships and OEMs have islands of data, and they're too busy. They're too busy doing business as usual to actually deep dive the data and then put together an effective plan that takes advantage of that data. And you highlighted one thing that is so obvious to all of us in the auto industry, and we forget it, is that the milestones are predictable. You know, it's predictable that in this country, for example, in Australia, in 7.8 years, you will buy a new car on average. Some people buy earlier, some people buy late, but you will buy that. You will service your car every year because there's an annual service that most dealerships have or franchises have, if not two. So they're all predictable things that we take for granted. So if you actually analyze the data, you can actually be really targeted with that predictability because everything is time-based. So accessing it, and then getting the other bits, which is really drilling down into that, so linking the service and sales. And the one very powerful one I highlighted in your presentation was giving the difference between an offer, a benefit, and a reward. An offer is available to anybody. A benefit is if I become a part of a club. So I buy a car, I'm part of the brand's club. But the reward is I get something. I earned it. I earned the reward. The benefit I get for joining. It's a membership thing. Whereas reward is I've earned it. And it gives me a barrier to exit because I've earned this reward, but it's only available with you, or with your brand, or with your store. It's a barrier for me to go somewhere else because I'm not going to get that reward somewhere else. And the fear of loss creeps in because am I scared of missing out here? And when you said the offer of I've just spent $350 on a service and you offer me that $350 as an immediate discount for the next 30 days to buy off buying a car, it's an automatic, I've earned that. Wow. I've earned that. That is a reward. And then I can potentially negotiate more or less, whatever, but it doesn't matter. I already know I've got that. So therefore, I won't look anywhere else because I've only got that with you. And that is super, super powerful. And when I look at what you and your organization do, your USP is exactly that. Getting granular with the data and analyzing it, using your digital and IT skills to create EDMs and communication through a multitude of platforms and carriage services where you test it, because a lot of us get caught out. You can send something via an iPhone, but it doesn't render correctly, say on an Android or something. If you don't get it right, and the same goes for web browsers. And even SMSs and WhatsApp. The fact that you actually use multi-carriage methods to get that message across, but then you're also doing that 360, that if they've responded, you don't overload them with additional messaging because they've already engaged and taken the offer or taken the benefit or redeeming the reward. That data management, normalizing and comparing, and then using that and speaking with that data to come up with a plan, because you've got the industry knowledge and the background and then the expertise to then do a 360, because at the end of the day, the bottom line is you're all about ROI, because that's why we're doing this thing, is about the ROI, but we only get the ROI if we do the customer bit right, and we get the customer bit right by looking at the data and getting granular with it. So definitely individuals, organizations, OEMs should be reaching out to you to engage with your services, because at the end of the day, your services are going to improve their ROI. Have I missed anything? Thanks for listening. Hopefully you've got as much out of David's presentation as we did. There's some real gems in there and a lot of information to digest, but really it punches through that return on investment, loyalty, all swings back to getting that data right and doing something with it. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to our channel, like us on YouTube, subscribe to Spotify or iTunes, and visit our website at autocurrents.com.
Thanks very much for listening. We'll speak to you again next week.